Super Senpai Podcast. Welcome to the Super Senpai Podcast. This is a bi-weekly, episodic tokusatsu-related podcast where we're hecka excited about mecha. I'm Pat.
And I'm Grant. And we are back together again, just the two hermanos here, going to watch some more Super Sentai. No guest this week, but we're going to be watching some more Lupinranger versus Patranger. But Pat, how you doing, man?
Doing all right. We were traveling a bit this weekend, so I'm a little bit tired still. I've heard some good things, I think, about these new episodes, so I'm excited to get back to Lupinranger versus Patranger.
Yeah, me too, definitely. Yeah, and it's one of those things, I never understand people that can travel all the time. Like, anytime they have a break, they always travel. More power to them, but anytime I travel, I'm always just wiped out. I'm like, for every day I travel, I feel like I need 2 days to recover.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I'm gonna go to sleep like immediately after this instead of processing like I normally do. I'm just so tired.
If only we had that Zordon teleportation skill. If only we could do it. Well, so this week we're going to be watching episodes 18 and 19 of Lupinranger vs. Patranger. But before we do that, we are going to talk a little bit about the news because there is some news coming down the pipe, at least on the Power Ranger side of things. So, of course, there's lots of big shakeups going on in terms of Power Rangers. We know Saban Brands no longer exists anymore. And it's all fully owned by Hasbro now. But one of the probably, I think a lot of people would agree that Dino Charge and Ninja Steel have both been, shall we say, a little creatively rocky, to say the least. I think that's a polite way to put it at times, even though I am sort of a Dino Charge apologist myself. And of course, the movie last year was, again, sort of, there was a mixed reception to it. I personally responded very well to it, but at the same time, it was not a perfect product, and I know it's one of those things where the flaws weren't flawy enough for me. The highs were high enough that I really enjoyed it quite a bit, but I could completely understand someone being like, this was not for me and this was not my cup of tea. So it's been, I think, creatively for Power Rangers, it's been a little mixed here the past couple of years, I think. I think that's a fair assessment. But one of the real bright spots has been the comic from Boom Studios. It has been pretty consistently amazing. Pat, have you been reading it at all?
Here's the thing. There was a really great sale on Comixology, and it's just moved into my ridiculously long queue. But I didn't fast track it yet.
Yeah, I need to get caught up again.
Yeah, I do have them. I need to sit down and work on a bunch of stuff.
I hear you. The backlog is eternal, my friend. No, I have been keeping up, sort of. I'm not a floppy kind of guy in terms of like buying the floppy single issues. I tried to do that a couple years ago. It's just not my cup of tea. And this is one of those things that maybe it's just me as a reader, I cannot stand advertisements in the middle of a book. Single issues, just having those advertisements in them, I didn't like them as a kid. I haven't liked them as a young man. I certainly don't like them now. So I tend to buy trade paperbacks, so I'm almost always a little behind where everyone else is at. But I've only read through the first 3 trades. I need to pick up the 4th, which is the 3rd trade is around where, for those who have read it and don't remember exactly where the 3rd trade, I think it's like 15 or 16 or so issue-wise. So I think that's around when Lord Drakon shows up, which is like a big villain in the comic series. But I can say pretty consistently that the Power Rangers comic is generally agreed upon to be by fandom really, really, really good. Probably my favorite treatment of the Mighty Morphin material, just kind of writ large. Like, it's really good and probably better than. It's one of those things where we may finally have a thing that's. This is definitely at least on par, if not much better than the original work that was done with Zyuranger. Like, it's really high quality writing, excellent art, it's well paced, like it's really good stuff. But so the big announcement, I guess recently in the past couple days, has been that there will be a creative team shakeup on the comic. It's been written by Kyle Higgins, and I forget who the artist is that works on it. Name escapes me right now. It may be different artists. I think there's a few different ones. Anyway, Kyle Higgins, the main writer, he's been on it from the beginning. I think they're around issue 25 or so now, or no, maybe a little bit further than that. But they're in the mid-20s to late 20s. He'll be leaving, and they're bringing on a new writer and a new artist. I think they've had a few different artists on the book so far, but so that's a sort of a mixed bag of news. I think the new writer is Marguerite Bennett. I know she's worked for DC Comics. I know she did DC Bombshells, and I think she's worked on Batgirl, maybe. I don't recall. My Cape comic knowledge is very ephemeral. It's very, very spotty, especially when it comes to modern writers. But for myself, as someone who enjoys the comic quite a bit, I'm certainly sad to see Kyle go, because I think he's, for someone who, I listen to him a fair amount on like Ranger Danger podcast and stuff, he's clearly not someone who went in with a lot of, say, fan baggage per se. Like, he went in just kind of with the same memories we all seem to have had from MMPR's, original run.
Right, yeah.
He's really shepherded the material and has done some pretty incredible work with what he's been given, and it feels very Power Rangers, and yet at the same time is like clearly one of the top sort of presentations of that material. So I'm certainly sad to see him go, but Margaret Bennett is not someone who I've read, but she comes highly recommended to me by a number of people who I trust. So I'm excited to see what she's going to do with it. And certainly, I think the big thing right now going on is what's called the Shattered Grid event, which I'm not quite up to date, but it's kind of it's definitely a big lore shakeup. So it makes sense for there to be a creative team shakeup following that. And this is just the nature of the beast with comics. I mean, we see new creative teams for Sentai and for everything else every season. So having 2 years solid on a book, they're going to be, I guess she'll be coming on for issue 31. That's over 2 years, 2.5 years really, with the property. That's a pretty long run. So at least it seems that way to me in American comics. It feels like the runs get shorter and shorter.
Yeah,
some creative teams. So I certainly don't think that he did not get a fair shake to tell the tales he had to tell. And Marguerite's a clearly very experienced writer, so I'm not concerned personally. I'm sure some people are, just because anytime things change hands, you worry about tonal shifts and how different is it going to be. But I'm certainly excited by the new prospect. I mean, they're not pulling on an unknown for sure.
Yeah, I really need to just sit down and do it, like,
yeah.
So I can experience this change with everybody.
Yeah, that's my hope too. Get caught up by the time the changeover happens. I really want to read Shattered Grid just because all the art I see popping up on the timeline, I'm like, oh, it looks so good.
Yeah, no kidding. But yeah, I've been ducking. I'm still ducking that that trailer thing that they put out. Like, sometime, eventually I'll check it out. Like, but
I mean, everything with the Power Rangers comic, it definitely feels like, okay, this is the show I thought I was watching when I was a kid.
That's a good sign.
So, but yeah, so it's a change up, but these things happen with creative teams. It is just par for the course. There's nothing will continue forever, but I look forward to it. I'm glad that, I guess personally, I'm glad that Boom has the confidence in the material and that it's doing well enough for them that, they'll continue. Like, they're not just ending the book, they're going to continue with it. I think that's a good sign. In the net. All right, so we ready to hop in and start talking about some Lupinranger versus Patranger?
Yeah.
Cool.
So we're coming a little bit off of a few. What do we? We just had a bunch of Patranger episodes, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, big focus last time.
Yeah, so that was real appealing. And it ended. I think the last one. What was the last one we saw? Was it the body swap?
That was the one where this is the one with the dream space and Pat Red like shooting out the sky and everything. Yeah. And his like sort of love interest paramour, maybe. Mm-hmm. At least very good friend.
Still good. So, but yeah, okay.
But yeah, we're definitely coming off a string of Patranger focused episodes.
Yes. We'll see if that's building towards something or if they're just going to switch it over and just get what we get.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm ready to jump into it.
Cool. Yeah, let's do it.
この番組は楽しい時を作るグループ PRT とザ・コミックフィンドとご覧のスポンサーの提供でお送りします。
All right, we're back. First episode that we saw was
episode 18 with the one of the brothers coming back.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the totally not a Game Gear Lupin collection item.
Correct.
Truly Lupin, our son Lupin, was ahead of his time.
Yes.
So this was I guess it was kind of a weird bait and switch plan. Like they're implying a bit more. We got a little bit more about what the Ganglers are up to, but only just a hint, like a whiff even, that they're from another world. The Lupin collection items were made somewhere else, and on site, Destra and Gauche could tell that the Lupin item was something crazy, and that they've been modified by a human, presumably Lupin the First. There's no other Lupins in this.
Yeah.
And then, so we got a sort of a comeback thing. Somehow they were able to revive the other sheep ram brother.
Yes, some sort of sheep ram man.
Yeah. And there was some kind of switching between the Lupin Rangers and the Patrangers on sort of who got to fight him, and I guess who got to defeat him in the end. Clearly, Good Striker is protecting the Lupin collection items. He doesn't want them destroyed. So anytime the Patrangers get close to accidentally doing it, either he'll try to prevent it or switch over. And that's just a bit of a weird thing going on there with that. But then with the episode we just watched, that was 19, we had an invisible Gangler that sort of framed Sakuya, Patra, and Nigo for just being rude to Superior. He made him dump soup. Sakuya was at soup today.
Yeah.
And then he just straight up decked Keiichiro and Tsukasa in the face, but it wasn't him, it was the invisible Gangler that grabbed his arm and made him do these things.
Right.
And so, with a bit of sort of sneaky teamwork, Lupin Rangers helped him figure out that the guy was, there was an invisible Gangler, and, ultimately defeated it and took its item, which we think is maybe the fan or some kind of, it resembles something from Die Ranger, potentially.
Yeah, what was her name? I'm trying to look it up now. Kujaku, maybe?
Yeah, it sounds right.
Did she
peacock lady.
It reminded me of her, but I don't remember if she had... I thought she had, knives or something, not little fans. But it reminded me of, a peacock, the feathers of that a peacock has, so I don't know. That's what came to mind, but...
Mm-hmm.
So, Pat, what did you think of these two episodes coming out the back end, since we had a big batch of 4 last week that we certainly enjoyed, and it was nice to be back? What about these two?
So I was mistaken because I thought that we were already going to get to see the next Ranger. So
yeah.
I was like, oh man, when's it going to happen? And there was a certain point through episode 19 that I was like, this episode's more than halfway over and they haven't even hinted at it. So it's probably not going to happen in this episode. So this is me just getting my hopes up. But overall, I mean, I enjoyed them. It's still fun. Bringing back, I guess I could have used a little bit more on what the heck the Ganglers are up to, or what the heck what is a secret thing? How could they tell that this was made in their world?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm always welcoming more Patranger focused stuff. I like them a lot, so.
Yeah. I definitely feel like of the two we just watched tonight, 18 was really, really, really strong. It's almost maybe not even fair to watch 19 right after it.
Mm-hmm.
Just because 18, like you said, I was expecting somewhere in the 17 to 18 mark, we start to see a new Ranger pop up. I always called him a 6th Ranger, but I was expecting a 7th Ranger, especially because I feel like they were messing with this, because 18 certainly puts that foot forward with the whole we're going to have a monster fight right out of the gate. It seems like it's going to take everybody to stop them, so it felt like we were building to that, but we actually didn't get it, which I thought was pretty surprising as well. But I think the nice thing about 18 was it added a lot more lore. I mean, I don't want to say a lot more. It wasn't a heavy exposition dump, but we finally got, if not the motivation for the Ganglers, we got some insight into there being a little more going on, just because they were what? Is it Destra? Is that the grenade kaiju?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so the grenade kaiju, he's implying, like you said, he's implying that, okay, these things come from our world, so we're not, they're not native to this realm. They're not like aliens or anything like that. They're from some other world or dimension or something like that. And that humans shouldn't be able to use them. So this versus changer technology should is something that was designed to allow them to access this power. So I don't know if they're playing it just the monsters are from another realm, or maybe they're playing on the idea of like a Sentai multiverse, maybe? You know, the idea that like, okay, you can't access these because these are all physically, the props are slightly modified mementos from other seasons. Maybe, you know, they're literally tapping into the power of the other seasons, like other dimensions or something like that. But just that hint there, I think, was nice. And having sort of a returning monster, just to sort of, they didn't really have to explain the setup or the gimmick for him. So I think it gave him a little more time to run with some interesting ideas, as opposed to like, okay, here's the monster, here's his gimmick, they have to figure it out. Like, it wasn't that sort of procedural, you know, monster of the week thing. They already had a monster. And we just getting Destra and Gauche out in the, you know, smoky woods, you know, talking, talking dramatically under the moonlight. That kind of stuff just helps add that feeling, or the sense of a bit of mystique and intrigue going on, because they're not talking where the boss can see him and all that kind of stuff. On top of that, at least out of this pair of episodes, the fight scene at the end, like the sort of the choreography of the entire fight of episode 18, I really, really enjoyed. I particularly enjoyed Lupin Red being inside Pat Kaiser's control room and fighting Pat Green and Pat Pink. I think that was just really, really good shtick. I really enjoyed that whole setup.
Yeah, that was the fight inside the mech was really exciting. Like I mean, you knew that they were still going to beat it, but like the sort of grabbing the controls mid attack or kind of rolling over the consoles, like it felt really coordinated in a really fun way.
Right.
And then, you know, a couple of times it turns out, oh, we're working together for a second. Hang on a second.
Yeah.
Like, and then the surprise of it, because I honestly wasn't prepared for him to just just knock Patranger to go out of the way completely to take his spot on the head.
Mm-hmm.
I was almost thinking that we were going to get like all of them at once. Like they were all going to go for it, but this was still pretty fun. So I can't complain too much about it.
Yeah, and I like the choreography. I mean, we've seen fights inside the cockpit, so to speak, of the Megazord, if you will, in the past. I mean, for me, the one that jumps to mind is the one from Zyuranger, where Barai just kicks in the door and is like, "Hey, what's up, nerd?" and starts beating everybody up.
Mm-hmm.
But it was nice that this battle, I guess, wasn't really to... I mean, it was obviously a battle between Lupin Red and the two Patrangers, but it wasn't... it didn't really feel like they were still fighting the fight outside the mech. It didn't pause that fight.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Having Lupin Red like using his little manipulator grabber thing to like move the controls still, and that was just... I think that was just that little extra element to keep it interesting. Like they're not just, we're stopping the fight. It was just gonna, like, I don't know. I think that was what really pushed over the edge for me. I was like, yeah, okay, I really, really love this. Having them still have that extra element going on.
Yeah, and something about bringing back this guy just to have him, just to have him maybe following up on the lead, because remember when he was initially crushed, I don't think anybody even addressed, okay, because usually they can't have the Lupin collections be destroyed, and since he got stepped on, I'm surprised that it wasn't, like, it was still salvageable somehow. And I guess maybe just covering up that potentially loose thread.
I also liked the sort of weird little bit where the treasures themselves don't grow with the monster. Since Destra gave the Ram brother, or the Goat brother, whatever, a new treasure, a new Lupin collection item, but it did not grow with him. And then the other two Lupin Rangers, blue and yellow, they swing in very dramatically and take it and swing back out onto their vehicles, which is just another cool scene. Just, you don't really, that sort of swinging from the chandeliers, kind of pulpy, I don't know, going into the monster's chest like that. That was interesting. I haven't seen that before, at least it hadn't happened to my knowledge. So, and then swinging in and out and all. I thought that was a good little twist in the middle of the fight too.
Yeah, it was a nice little bit, like seeing them actually inside inside this giant silver safe that was immediately destroyed, like right after.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there was that bit when at the very beginning of I think it was 18, when, I don't know that it may have happened before, but it struck me this time, is like right after the Patrangers form Pat Kaiser, they kind of slide in because they're on wheels. Like I'm sure it's happened more than once, but just for whatever reason, it struck me this time. And they were really using it when they're trying to dodge the missile, kind of sliding back and then kind of fending off attacks until they ultimately aren't able to dodge. But them doing that in the hard suit, like, seemed, I guess it just drew me in that moment.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, definitely. And any episode where we get to see both of the hard suits, oh, that's always a joy. So episode 19, which is sort of a more, I guess we'd maybe call it a little more standard cop drama. You know, where Sakuya ends up doing something to upset the upper
cranky superior.
Yeah, cranky superior officer, more of a politician type. You know, he must work up at the main office or whatever for the global police, but you know, is forced to upset him or whatever. But in true cop drama fashion, Commissioner Hilltop is forced to take his gun and put him on house arrest. Like, if you even walk out of those doors, you know, you're done for. So.
You really, really wanted him to call him a loose cannon.
Yeah, I so wanted to be like, you're a loose cannon, you're off the case, but you're too good of a cop for me to just fire. You know, like, that's what I was kind of waiting for, but it sort of happened in a roundabout way.
Yeah.
But how'd you feel about this one?
I feel like there was a moment, and I had said it, that I was a little bit disheartened that, like, they were so easy to believe that Sakuya would go off and, like, attack or dump soup on this guy's head, and then also deck them each, like, just straight up cold clock Keiichiro. Like you don't you know this guy well enough that you would sense that something was wrong rather than him just lashing out and attacking you? Like that kind of bummed me out a little bit, that's what they went for. Like, you need to cool off because something's wrong with you, dude. Like, really? Like, nothing else could explain it in the moment? Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah,
like that, just a little bit. Like, I was like, come on, he's your partner. He's like, you can't you just throw him out like that. Like,
yeah, but I mean, I guess, you know, invisible monster isn't the first place you go when someone gets punched. You know what I mean? Like, especially because the sort of more political higher up guy was being quite rude. So one could imagine.
Yeah, I guess I could see that. Like, I would have punched him too, but. Maybe that's what it is. And I gotta say, I'm generally not a fan of that kind. Thinking about it, I think we had a question about things before. I'm generally not a fan of bureaucracy getting in the way of people doing their job. Maybe because that's just too real. That one's a little too real. But thankfully, he was easy to win over because since they ultimately cleaned up that one gangler that was destroying a bunch of property, it made the cops look good. So. Different perspective, but
I think the burden of bureaucracy is at no matter, I don't know, any even slightly aware type of writing that involves an institution is gonna have, you know, the bureaucrats that just don't get us. You know, that's just that's a universal. Anyone who's had a job, you've got that universal feel of, like, people above you that don't get what you do and are in it just to make themselves look good. Like, that's gonna happen.
Too real.
Yeah, too real. This was truly the realest story ever written. this story of transforming giant robots. It truly was. But no, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the episode. I think the episode before it was just so much better. It was hard for this one not to be in its shadow a little bit. But I think the scene with, I think the kind of the payoff for me was the scene where Sakuya decides, like, you know what, I'm running out anyway. I wish we'd had a little bit more of him just sort of like, I don't know, it's one of those things where you know from the setup, like, he's going to get put on house arrest, he's going to have to break it. Like, that is what is going to happen. But we didn't get quite enough time of him really wrestling with it to make it feel quite as triumphant as it could. Like, it didn't feel like it cost him quite enough, maybe, if that makes sense. Like, I want a little more time of him being like, no, I can't lose this job. Maybe he's got someone to support or you know, a family member or something, but he just kind of was like, nah, I'm going to do it for my friends. And then, but I think the payoff there being that Hilltop meets him, and instead of, you know, stopping him or you know, throwing him in lockup or something, he gives him his Patranger and he's like, you know what, I'm probably risking my job here too. But that was probably the best moment for me in the episode.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because it's like, no matter what he did, either he loses his friends or more people get hurt. So he was willing to sort of sacrifice it. But and then of course, we actually got a glimpse of the preview this time, and then next week is when they're gonna do.
Right, we got
no,
just enough of a glimpse.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but Yeah, but overall, still really good. Feels like we're on a real good string of episodes here. Again, I understand why people, especially with how good Build has been, I understand why people would be maybe a little blasé about Lupinranger versus Patranger, but I think, I don't know, I feel like it's still something really special. I feel like it's, whereas Build feels like, I mean, I hate to compare it just because they're coming out at the same time, but I guess for me, and maybe you disagree with this, but for myself, I guess Build feels like, it just feels like it feels like it's doing Kamen Rider, but it feels like it's trying to be the last Kamen Rider, if that makes sense. Like it feels like this could just be the end of the whole franchise. Whereas this just feels like a really, really strong, maybe kind of crystallized version of a lot of the things that I like about Sentai, and it feels like it's just it's only going from strength to strength. So I'm very happy about that.
That's a real interesting way to put it. Like, have you experienced a Sentai that you could describe the way you describe Bill?
I don't know. Gosh. I mean, there's certainly the case to
be
made.
No pressure, I mean.
Right. There's certainly the case to be made for, what was the Power Rangers season where they thought it was the last one? Was it Operation Overdrive? Is that
maybe?
The one? No, or is it RPM? Maybe it's RPM. One of the ones that has a sort of, I think it's RPM. So Power Rangers RPM sort of has that feel because it's like that it's going to be like the last, Power Rangers. It certainly bills itself that way, and is probably, many people feel like it's one of the stronger seasons of that. So in terms of Sentai, I haven't completed enough Sentai to say that they have that kind of finality to them. Be curious to hear. Maybe that's a question we could put out to the community for next time.
Yeah.
Be an interesting,
maybe.
Interesting thing. But I don't know. Maybe that's just my observation of Build. Maybe again, I'm not the most well-versed in Kamen Rider either. It's only my 4th Kamen Rider show, so maybe I'm wrong about that. But it certainly feels like it's running white hot and it's just going to burn everything out on its way.
Yeah, I guess we'll see what it looks like when we're coming up on whatever the heck they're planning for the next one, because we're close to the end here, I think.
All right, well, we have one Twitter question this time. One Twitter question.
Our MVP.
Yep, this comes to us from our good buddy, Behalite Bebop. They ask, maybe not a question that should be featured on the show, but are you guys planning to do any more looks at classic/older seasons? Well, Pat, how do you feel about that? Us doing other seasons of Sentai or Power Rangers or what have you?
I'm certainly not opposed. Something that I really had fun when we did the Jetman episode. And I think even Daisy expressed interest at coming back to do more. But I think it would maybe benefit us to get a little bit further. Not like if we continue the trend of doing 2 episodes, then we'll finish Jetman in like 5 years, I guess.
Right.
But I think if we do Jetman, let's I would say go until we'll do 10 and 11 next time or something together, and then do a catch up before that.
Yeah, we'd do something along those lines.
But I like the idea of sort of doing a Sentai sampler or something. At least after. I mean, who knows what'll happen? Say when Lupinranger versus Patranger's over. I think that could be fun. Even a little bit of like, let's see the first 2 episodes, something with somebody who's very passionate about it, because that was really cool. I think that was the draw of the Daisy Jetman episode, because
also Daisy's awesome, but yes,
yeah, well, that too. That's a given.
I know.
Shout out to Daisy if you actually check this one out. I don't know if you're listening, but yeah, like I think if we found somebody that was super passionate about, if not Sentai, another. Some other toku thing, have us do like a couple episodes and then sell us on it or whatever. That'd be kind of cool.
Right, yeah. I think that would be the appeal there. I certainly like keeping up with something that's a little more current, but it obviously limits the pace with which we can talk about things. And it also, to some degree, the discussion may have already moved on, right? By the time we even if we're watching week to week, sometimes we usually watch a few days after it's already come out. So maybe it would behoove us after this to shift to a different sort of schedule and watch other series. The short answer is yes. The long answer is yes.
That's a good way to put it.
Well, all right. So, and again, we're hoping still next time. We're trying to get a special guest on for a very particular discussion, someone that we very much respect. But again, we don't want to necessarily say just because we had scheduling issues last time. So, hopefully, we can still do that. But if not, we'll be back with more Lupinranger versus Patranger in the meantime. So, But it was fun as always.
Wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing either, especially if, some cool stuff is looming. It looks like it is.
Right.
Like, okay, maybe we'll be back sooner. I don't know. But yeah, I've been pumped to get this, and it was my bad, like, not realizing what the heck weekend it was coming up. So I was like, I was busy, but I was gonna try and push it. Our guest was gonna be busy, and then it was just like, you know what, we'll do it later. It's fine.
It's too much.
My bad. That's fine. Things will work out. Yeah. And don't forget, folks, if you're enjoy the show and you want to support us a little bit, we do have our Patreon, where you can check out our commentary tracks from episodes 18 and 19, and whatever bloopers that happen to come up. It's just a little treat for you folks that are out there.
Yeah.
Well,
alrighty. It was another great episode, my bud. So, ready to say goodnight to the people?
Yes, sir. Thanks for tuning in to the Super Senpai Podcast. We'll notice you again next time.
Super Senpai Podcast.